Hi, my name is Karie Westermann, and I am studying art history. And I was the team captain on the Open University Challenge team. What first encouraged me to apply for University Challenge was I was back at university. This is my second degree I'm doing, and I wasn't able to apply for University Challenge the first time around because I was studying with an institution that's not eligible. So when I started studying with the OU, I was like, oh, that could be fun. That could be fun. I've always enjoyed quizzing, and it's a way of meeting other people in a way that I enjoy anyway. And so I thought one night I was sitting at home, saw that the application period had started, and I was like, oh, what's the worst that could happen? And I just applied on a whim. So I have this very silly bucket list of, seeing the Milky Way from a dark sky perspective, and going to Georgia, the country, not the state, and University Challenge, or rather, applying for University Challenge was on that bucket list. I did not consider that I might end up making the team. So it was really sort of, ticking off a box on my bucket list, going, oh, this could be fun to do because I didn't get to do that the first time around I was at uni. And what's the worst that could happen? Well, as it turned out, being on TV is
Yeah.
what happened. But I don't tend to think things through too much before I do them, which is probably a bad trait of mine. But I just went with the flow and went, oh, I can do this. I can apply now.
Mhm.
The whole process was you apply for a space on the team, obviously, but first you apply, then you do a general knowledge quiz, and I didn't do particularly well on that. And I thought, oh well, that's it then. And then I got a call back saying, oh, we'd like you to do the sort of special round, which is you choose your sort of speciality, and I'm an arts and humanities person through and through. And so I chose arts and humanities as my specialist subject, and I did that quiz, and that went okay. And then I was invited to join a round of online quizzing. I think we were like eight, right, eight teams or eight bunches of applicants, or maybe like 10 in each or something like that. So we were like the 80 supposedly best people competing against each other and also trying out teamwork. And it was just like a little 25-minute session in a group of about 10 other people. And after that, I was like, oh, I had a lot of fun, and that went well. And then I got invited to be team captain, which was a shock because team captain is amazing. Um, but I quickly realized that being team captain also means that you are the one who does all the admin leading up to the audition with the TV company that produces University Challenge. So it's not just, being in the middle of the team on TV, it's actually rounding up the team, arranging practice rounds, and doing admin and telling people, don't forget to post your application or your photo through and all that sort of thing. So it's a bit more than just, you know, being the one talking on TV. I did not have any involvement in putting the team together. Now, as it happened, I got paired up with a fantastic bunch of people, but that was all out of my hands. It was something that was done by the OU, and we had a broad spectrum of specialist topics and knowledge range across the entire team. We had somebody who was doing finance and who was super good on geography and history. We had our science guy who also happened to be an ex-professional cricket player, so he had sport covered. We had an environmental science student who had a previous degree in political science, and then we had me, who was sort of the arts and humanities person. So it was really a broad spectrum of knowledge, and we had two reserves. Usually you would only have one, but because a job came in the way, so one our first reserve actually had to leave, and we had got second reserve, and they were both history students doing amazing things as well. So it's really, I think, the OU that sort of looks at everybody and going, oh, I wonder if they could work together because their sort of range of knowledge and skills kind of overlap in good ways rather than bad ways. Because Open University is kind of different from a lot of other universities, my team, we didn't actually meet in person until 2 hours before our face-to-face audition with the TV production company down in Manchester. So what we did, we essentially, when we got put together, we had about a month and a half to practice before our audition with the TV company. And we had to put up with, we couldn't go to the pub together to do pub quizzes. We had to meet online via Zoom because there was one up in the very northern reaches of Scotland and somebody living in, the south coast of England. So we had to make do with meeting up on Zoom. And that was not the best prep, but we made it work. And we just practiced and practiced. And this was also over the Christmas period. So a lot of us were away on holiday, seeing family and friends. So we didn't have as much time. So we actually didn't meet in person until the day of the audition. What was quite funny, though, that we showed up to the audition with the TV company, which happened in Manchester. And we got into this room with the production team and another university. And we were sort of essentially tested on general knowledge, and we had to introduce ourselves to camera. We had to talk about, our special interests, what kind of questions we'd like. And as we were leaving, the head of production sort of said to me, am I right in thinking because you're Open University, you actually haven't met in person until today? And I was like, yeah, that's right. And he sort of nodded and said, that's very interesting. And I thought to myself at that point, like, we're going to get selected because we had fantastic chemistry between us. We were bantering, having fun, cheering for each other, supporting each other, and really working well together. And I think that came across very quickly. But that was just a fluke. It was not something that, you could have predicted when you put us together. So well done to the OU team who put us together. They did a good job. I think it's important to realize that by the time you get to the TV audition, everybody selected for their teams are good quizzes. And obviously, the production team wants to have good quizzes on TV, but they also want the TV show to be entertaining. And that's something that we kept thinking about is it's not just about pure quizzing. It's about also, can this person be on TV and be interesting on TV and deliver some sort of entertainment? And I think from our perspective, we were super, super aware of that. One of my teammates, Nikki, had been the reserve for the team that had appeared for OU the previous year. So he gave lots and lots of insights into how the audition process worked. And he sort of said they're looking for chemistry, they're looking for fun teams that get on, because everybody at that stage are good quizzes. That was a really good point. And it's also a numbers game because I think there are about 300 eligible institutions in the UK, and about 150 of those apply and go through the audition process, and 28 of those end up on TV. So we had that at the back of our head at all times. It's like it's not enough to be good quizzes and know lots of stuff. We also have to come across well as individuals and as a team. One of the big surprises, apart from being selected, was that everybody involved in the University Challenge production, they're a massive nerd. everybody from the head of production to the runners to the question setters, everybody's an amazingly big, wonderful nerd, and it felt like a really safe environment to be a nerd. You know, we were all staying at the same hotel, so we got to see the other teams socially, and it was just really wonderful to meet other people who were like me, somebody who gets excited about obscure stuff. Um, and everybody was so nice as well, and it felt like a really big family. And Amal Rajan, who is the presenter of University Challenge, is lovely and really personable and gets to know you. And it was really just a really nice experience. It was so wonderful to be around these wonderful, warm, special people. And I can't really describe it other than I'm so glad I did it. Coming out of the whole Auburn University Challenge experiences really made me appreciate the strengths of Open University, how di our diversity and how everybody brings something different to the table because we all have different stories, backgrounds, skill sets, and knowledge, and there's a reason why we're studying with the Open University, and that's a real strength. And I've felt that came across when I was participating in University Challenge because we met teams who'd gone the straight and narrow path and they did well, but there was a sense of okay, they know one, two, three things, whereas Open University we came with a lot of lived experience and a lot of different sets of knowledge because we've worked retail, we've worked as carers, or we might have a full-time job on the side that gives us different lines of inquiry. And I think that diversity of the Open University really came through with University Challenge and made me really appreciate what it is we do with Open University. On a personal level, it's also been very cool to have teenage girls come up to me on the street going, "Oh, I watched your University Challenge. It made me feel like I could do this." And I was like, that's really nice to have women and young girls come up and feel, like they saw themselves on the TV screen and really just encouraging women to get into quizzing because we're underrepresented. And getting that kind of feedback has been really, really cool. Where, seeing these young kids who are maybe just starting university just go, oh, maybe I can do that too. And that made me really happy. Um, because I think sometimes we think of things like University Challenge as, oh my God, complete and utter brainiac people who have studied for this entire life, and suddenly they see somebody like me who's a bit, I've got blue hair and nose piercing, and they can sort of identify with that in a way that maybe they couldn't do before. So that's been so cool. That's been so cool. I would encourage people to apply, even though there might not be certain it's right for them, because I just did it for a laugh. I didn't think things through, and I didn't expect to be picked. So you never know how good you are until you try. And also, even if you're sort of going, oh, maybe I won't get through to the telly and I don't want to be on TV, you don't have to. You can just do it as a laugh and try out. And if you do end up being selected, that's wonderful. It's going to be a life-changing experience. But do apply because you don't know how good you are. One thing to keep in mind in terms of applying the University Challenge is that you're not obliged to know everything. Nobody can know everything. And this is why it's a team effort. Um, you're not alone. You'll be working together with three or four other people on acquiring stuff and practicing and reading up. And there are ways of preparing for this stuff. I don't know anything about science at all. And yet I did okay on the quiz because I happen to know a lot about art and literature. So you don't need to know everything, just have basic general knowledge and be enthusiastic about your topic, and then rely on your rest of your teammates. And there is prep to be done, but it's absolutely doable. A lot of people applying for University Challenge are involved in things like online quizzing, online quiz league, all these sort of things. And there is a tendency for University Challenge to be slightly overwhelmed by people who participate in these online things. But I occasionally attend a pub quiz, and that's it. I'm just a complete amateur. And that's what University Challenge is about. It's about being at university and having fun and acquiring these bits of knowledge and then sharing them and figuring out things. And most of the time on University Challenge, there are clues within the questions. So if you listen carefully, you can kind of unravel questions that may come across as obscure because suddenly you go, hang on, this is actually about X, Y, Z, and I know about that. When you apply for University Challenge, I would say just lean into the knowledge you've got. Obviously, pay attention to things like recent winners of the Nobel Prize or who's won Wimbledon, sort of that sort of standard pub quiz knowledge. But further on in the process, I would suggest watching all seasons of University Challenge. I would say in recent years, the questions have been slightly different. They're more diverse. They involve a lot more women. They involve a lot more people of color than they used to. So going back 10 years might be too much because it was very different 10 years ago and it's changed for the better, I would say. But do watch all seasons of University Challenge. There are University Challenge books you can read. And also, I know for a fact that previous contestants will also be happy to help you out. When you audition, they do ask you like what's your sort of favorite topic in things you're studying and what other topics would you like to have come up? Somebody in my team said I would love to have questions about airline disasters come up, which I thought was quite fun. But what I said was I work in textiles, so I would obviously love questions about textiles. And I am particularly interested in modernism, so early 20th century arts and culture. And I think I got one question about that. So they don't particularly cater to your super specific niche interest, but they go, oh, okay, they this contestant might know about this topic as well, and will sort of soft lop it in, and that's quite nice. But they don't go out of the way to go, oh yeah, she's super interested in feminist literature. Let's give her some questions about feminist literature. But they have diversified. The people working on the show also have a big range of topics they're interested in. A lot of them supply questions, and they're just making a big effort to make the questions reflect the society we live in, rather than so, the old standards, Dickens and Shakespeare. Even though there's still questions about Dickens and Shakespeare, and I'm appalling for Shakespeare. My absolutely favorite question came very late on. And I'm not going to spoil this for anybody who's not watched it, but it was one of the last shows we taped. I was so tired. I could barely make myself remember my own name. I mean, I was tired. And then this question came up about ballet, and I was like, God. And it turned out to be about costume design for ballets. And it was an artist called Leon Bakst, who I love and adore. And I just remember pressing that button as quickly as I could and sort of go sort of screaming out, sort of, "Leah Buxt!" And that was my absolute favorite moment because it's something I love. And I've always loved that sort of whole early 20th century ballet russe um, thing. The problem was I was so tired that I mangled one answer. And I sort of went, oh yeah, I'm so tired. I couldn't even remember that. And that was annoying. But that was probably my favorite moment for me personally. There was another question where, and this was not actually, it's very edited. The program is super edited. It takes about 90 minutes to tape a 28-minute show. So there's a lot that's got out. And there was a moment in a match between Open University and Durham where we had to identify a king. And I can't remember the question correct, sort of off the top of my head, but it ended up with me sort of going with my teammate Hector Payne, going, Richard the Third, and I was like, no, give me another king, and Nikki on the other side was like, king, 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 and Miles started screaming, laughing, and we had to pretty much redo that entire question because it was so, we were hysterical at that stage. Um, and I just remember us cracking up. And then when we watched it on the show, they'd edited so everybody was super serious, and I was like, oh my God, that's television for you, isn't it? That's showbiz. A moment of absolute hilarity being cut down so we all looked super serious. I would say my top tip for applying and going through this entire process is just to have fun, because it is just a TV show. I've met a lot of contestants from other universities who take it super seriously because it's part of their 10-year plan and they need it for their CV. Uh, but honestly, that's missing the point of University Challenge because it's just fun. And it's like competing at the Olympics of quizzing. And just go for it, apply for it, have fun with it, and don't be super serious. It's not like the end of the world, but it
Yeah.
is quite a fun process.